Retinoids are truly in a class of their own, so nothing is going to come close to what they're able to do. When it comes to an alternative, what do we mean? We're looking for similar results. So that might mean reduced breakouts, that might mean reduced hyperpigmentation, fine lines, supporting collagen production. It might have to do with your oil production. These are all reasons people use retinoids. So for all of those different concerns, there are a few different ingredients I like that can be suitable for pregnancy. One of them being niacinamide, which has been shown to increase collagen production. It can reduce oil production. It can help even the skin tone. Hello and welcome to another episode of #Skinthusiast, the podcast. Every week, as you guys know on my stories on Sunday, I collect all of your questions, your burning questions to answer throughout the week. But the whole idea of this Q&A is that I answer them while I'm doing my 10-minute LED treatment. So you can imagine that there's only so many questions I can answer in those 10 minutes. So I am going to cover a bunch of the overflow in today's episode. We're going to cover everything from certain product recommendations, laser treatments that I recommend, postpartum skincare, post-workout skincare, how to use Adapalene, etc., etc. There's going to be so many questions to answer today. So I'm just going to go through the list and answer your most common questions. So the first one that comes up is how to heal chapped lips. You've probably seen a lot of videos on social media from skincare experts talking about quote-unquote addictive ingredients in chapsticks, and I want to explain exactly what that is because it can be a little bit confusing. So what we mean when we say addictive ingredients is that a lot of the chapsticks or lip products on the market have ingredients that are inherently irritating, like essential oils, menthol. There's a ton of other ingredients that are currently used in common chapsticks that can irritate the lips. So what happens is you apply the chapstick and your lips feel really good momentarily, but those ingredients get to work irritating your already chapped, dry lips, and then soon enough you feel like you need more. So that's why you can never get ahead of the cycle. So instead what you want to do is prioritize lip products that don't have any of these ingredients and that are strict occlusive products. So what I like to do is either use plain old Vaseline or Aquaphor on my lips, or there's also a really good product by, the brand is called Remedy. So the product is literally called Remedy for dry lips, and it's a fantastic quote unquote chapstick to use on the lips. Now you want to make sure, I'm sure some of you guys have seen some of the videos lately about like using Aquaphor when you're going out in the sun. You don't want to use any sort of petrolatum based ointment when you're going out in the sun, and that's because there's no sun protection in those products. So when you have nice shiny slick lips, it kind of attracts more UV exposure, and so you're more likely to get burnt. Same reason you wouldn't put on a face of Vaseline and then go out in the sun. So if you're going to be out in the sun, on a long walk, on the beach, pool day, you want to make sure you're using something with SPF, and then the times you're not out in the sun, you can use one of the products that I mentioned before. Next question, how do I use my Tower 28 SOS spray? We love the SOS spray in our house. I think there's so much talk on social media about what hypochlorous acid does and doesn't do, and the data is very early. We don't really have the data to support its use for like the treatment of acne, but we do know that it does have a lot of soothing and calming properties. So I do personally use it on my skin when I'm breaking out to help calm that inflammation. I'll use it on my daughter if she has any areas that are irritated. I'll use it in my gym bag to spray on my face after I've been sweating. And I'll talk a little bit later because there was a question that came through about post-workout skincare, so I'll chat about some other options later as well. But in general, that's how I use the Tower 28 SOS spray in my routine. Next question, is CO2 contraindicated with mild rosacea? So mild rosacea in general is tricky because there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. So there are some people, especially when it comes to a quote-unquote mild form of rosacea, that can tolerate a lot of the actives, a lot of the procedures that someone with quote-unquote normal skin could tolerate. But then there's people on that same spectrum that these same procedures or ingredients will surely cause a flare. So there's no way to answer that for you without seeing you in person. And even so, for my patients with mild rosacea who are under very well control, but occasionally they'll have a breakout, this is a really personal conversation that I have with them directly, and we have to weigh the benefits versus the risk of a procedure or ingredient. So the conversation I would be having with my patient with mild rosacea is CO2 really indicated for the concerns that you have, number one? Because if it's not, then it's definitely not worth the risk. And if it is, how bad do those concerns bother you, because if it's something that's really not bothering you, it's not worth the risk of a flare. But if it is something that's really driving you nuts and we feel like CO2 is the best option, then we have to weigh that risk. And again, we can pre-treat, we can look at our pre and post skincare to reduce that risk of a flare as much as possible, but there will always be that risk that's present with someone with rosacea. Next question, how long after having a baby did it take me to get back into my full self-care skincare routine? A while. I was one of those people who packed my retinoid in my hospital bag. I had my little 3-step skincare routine ready to go in the hospital. And then, as many of you know, my hospital experience was very different than what I expected because a lot of unforeseens happened, and I didn't even wash my face for the 7 days I was admitted to the hospital. So I had high hopes, but that's not what ended up happening. And then when I came home, I was really kind of locked inside most of the time. I would say it took me a good few weeks before I was back into a regular rhythm with my skincare routine. And even then, it was like wash my face, slap on some moisturizer. If I was going outside, I wore sunscreen. So not an ideal routine, but that's okay. This time is not about your skincare, your self-care routine. Unless it's something that is really making you feel better, then absolutely prioritize it. But don't be hard on yourself if you aren't able to get all your skincare and self-care in, especially in those few weeks or few months postpartum. It's really survival mode, especially with your first baby, just trying to figure it all out and just survive all the unknowns and all the newness of it all. Next question, comedonal acne and dehydrated skin. This is a tough one, and this is why when you're starting a retinoid, it's really important to have good guidance, either from someone you trust online or ideally from somebody in person, a dermatology provider. Because as you guys know, most of the treatments for acne can be drying and irritating. So when you add that on top of already dehydrated skin, you can see where this can become a problem. And this is a huge reason why I have an issue with providers telling their patients that the moisturizers and cleansers that they use don't matter. That it could not be further from the truth. And it's something I hear all the time from not only my community, but patients that come in to see me after they have quote unquote failed treatments with other providers. And they'll usually be surprised that I recommend the same topical treatments, like the same topical acne medications. And they'll say, no, that didn't work for me last time. And when I say, well, tell me how you used it. Tell me how long you used it. There's always so many red flags with the instructions that they were given or the rest of the routine that they had. So my advice is really prioritize the rest of your routine when you're starting something for acne. You want a nice gentle cleanser suited for your skin type, a nice gentle moisturizer with ceramides suited for your skin type, and then a nice sunscreen during the day. The rest you don't need. You don't need acids. You don't need retinol because more often than not, the treatment for your acne is going to be a retinoid. So if you're someone who is dealing with comedonal acne, my favorite is Differin because it was previously only available by prescription and is now available over the counter. And this goes for any type of acne. Differin is such a great treatment. And then the rest you would keep very gentle. You would use a nice gentle cleanser like a Cetaphil cleanser. Cetaphil also makes a great moisturizer. Also the Alpen Beauty moisturizer with ceramides. Skin Fix moisturizer is a little bit heavier if you're really dry. So keep it simple and keep the rest of your routine simple and supportive. The entire goal of the rest of your routine is just to support your skin barriers so that you're better able to tolerate that acne active. Next question. I would love to know what you think about Skin Better Science. I got this question a few times. I have used some Skin Better products in the past. I have nothing bad to say about the brand. I think their Alpharet's a great product. What I do sometimes have an issue with is it seems like whenever I see Skin Better recommended on social media that it's one of those things where you need 7 to 10 products and they need to all be from the same brand, and that is so untrue. In fact, I find most issues when someone addresses their skincare in this manner. So I understand from a marketing perspective you want to sell as many products as you can, and sadly I think this then trickles down to the provider, the esthetician who is selling these products. But you don't need a 7 to 10 step routine. I do like the brand, but there's 1 or 2 products I would cherry pick out of it and then formulate it into another routine. And that's going to bring me into my next question, which is, do you recommend using all the same brand? And I've chatted about this briefly, and I do believe it requires its own episode because I think there's a lot that can be said on this topic, but I consider myself brand agnostic, which means I don't follow 1 or 2 skincare brands. I really believe that you can create an efficacious routine from most, not all, most of the skincare brands on the market. And the way I do that is by cherry picking the hero products from each of those lines and creating them into a routine that works well together. So I think what happens a lot of times is people think that they need to buy all skincare from one brand and they need a lot of it. And that's where I find that there's a lot of issues with skincare, with irritated skin, with maybe not seeing the results that you want. So no, I don't recommend just using one brand. I recommend finding the best cleanser for you, the best serum for you, the best moisturizer for you, the best sunscreen for you, the best retinoid for you, the best vitamin C for you, and then putting that all into a routine that works together. And this doesn't have to be complicated. You guys know my whole thing is simple is often better, so it does not have to be complicated. I definitely recommend my simple skincare resource. If you go to skinthusiast.com/simple skincare, it will walk you through how to pick the best of the different products for your skin type. And if you want something a little bit more comprehensive, if you go to skinthusiast.com/shop, you can see my comprehensive skincare guide, which literally walks you through it step by step how to create a skincare routine. Next question, skincare for long plane rides. So I usually don't recommend skincare for long plane rides, even transatlantic flights. What I'll usually do is, depending on when we leave, so if we're leaving during the daytime, I'm doing my morning routine, a nice dense moisturizer, and a nice moisturizing sunscreen. So that's to protect my skin on the plane, and then also to give my skin that added moisture so that it's not drying out on the airplane. If my plane leaves at night, if it's a red eye, I'll do my nighttime skincare routine, really hydrating, moisturizing products. I might even do a thin layer of Vaseline on the face to do a very light slug, not so that my skin is sticky, but just so that there's a nice occlusive on my skin to keep that water from evaporating off the surface of the skin. I don't find that these plain routines are necessary. They do kind of gross me out a little bit, but that's beside the point. I just don't find it necessary to be manipulating your skin while you're on the flight. Just do your skincare before, and then when you get to your destination, make sure you do a good cleanse and then go on with the rest of your routine, depending on the time of day it is. This episode is brought to you by, well, me. Skinthusiast.com is your one-stop shop for all things skin, hair, and beauty. I have countless blog posts to educate you on all the skin concerns and most common skin questions I receive. We also have a complete skincare basics guide on our shop page, as well as the cutest In My Skin era crew necks. If you want to support the show, please head over to skinthusiast.com/shop, and don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Next question, how to start using Adapalene. So this is something that I find so many people are not well educated on, and it leads to so many issues, and it leads to so many people who then don't use the product when it's very effective. So Differin, or Adapalene, as I mentioned, was previously only available by prescription, but is now available over the counter. So it is the strongest acne treatment you can get without a prescription, and how you use it really matters. So some of my favorite tips are, number 1, use only a pea-sized amount. Number 2, use it on top of your moisturizer, especially in the beginning. Number 3 is to start using it like every 3 nights. If you're very sensitive, start once a week, but if your skin's pretty normal, start every 3 nights for a couple of weeks. Then you can slowly increase your way up to every night over a period of months. It can take you months to get to every night use, and that's totally fine. Next is making sure that your cleansers and moisturizers are really simple and supportive for the skin barrier. I'm trying to think what other tips I have. Don't use acids while you're starting Adapalene. I also have a retinoid guide. It's skinthusiast.com/retinoid if you want to learn more about the guidance I give my patients for starting retinoids, because this is really key. This will make or break your experience with retinoids like Adapalene. It's so important. Okay, next question. After a workout routine, if you can't immediately shower, what do I do? So after working out, I will spray my skin with either a salicylic acid spray or a hypochlorous acid spray. So either the Tower 28 SOS spray, or Differin also makes a sal acid spray for the body that you can spray on the chest, the neck, the back. That's what I do to kind of hold myself over until I can get to the sink. And I'm often asked, like, if I'm working out in the morning, do I do my routine twice? How does that work? So if I'm working out in the morning, what I do is just apply my sunscreen. I don't even cleanse. I don't do moisturizer. I just apply a little bit of sunscreen. I go to my workout, I come back, and then I do my full morning routine. So I'll fully cleanse off that sunscreen, and then I'll go in with my vitamin C, my moisturizer, and my sunscreen for the day. Next question, pregnancy safe alternative for retinol. So you guys will have heard me say that there is no true retinoid alternative, pregnant or not. Retinoids are truly in a class of their own, so nothing is going to come close to what they're able to do. However, when it comes to an alternative, what do we mean? we're looking for similar results. So that might mean reduced breakouts, that might mean reduced hyperpigmentation, fine lines, supporting collagen production. It might have to do with your oil production. These are all reasons people use retinoids. So for all of those different concerns, there are a few different ingredients I like that can be suitable for pregnancy. One of them being niacinamide, which has been shown to increase collagen production. It can reduce oil production. It can help even the skin tone. Now, a word of caution here, niacinamide is now in everything and you can overuse it. So just pick one product that has niacinamide in it. It doesn't need to be in your cleanser, your serum, your moisturizer, and your sunscreen. Next ingredient I love that it's pregnancy safe is azelaic acid. That's a great quote-unquote alternative when you can't use retinol. It can help with evening the skin tone. It can help with reducing hyperpigmentation, reducing breakouts. It's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. So it's not absolutely amazing at doing any of these things, but it does help to address a lot of different things. So that's another one. Do I think bakuchiol has a place in pregnancy? Sure. I like bakuchiol as an antioxidant. There is one or two very small studies that show that it could potentially have some results like retinoids. Those studies, like I said, are small. I don't call it a retinoid alternative, but can it be a nice option for your skincare routine? Yes. Next question, postpartum skin and hair tips. Again, don't put too much stress on yourself during this time. Talk with your provider about reincorporating your retinoid. Most providers are okay with using a retinoid even when you're breastfeeding, so you can talk to them about incorporating that back into your routine. Just slowly getting back into your normal routine. You will probably have had a break just because of childbirth. You know, a lot of times skincare isn't top of mind during that time, so just getting back into your regular routine, whether you choose to use your retinoid or not, making sure you're using sunscreen, of course. Just a good cleanse and a good moisturizer is going to make you feel like $1,000,000 when you're stuck at home, really in the trenches of newborn life, which is an amazing time, but can be a little bit difficult for women. So just having your skincare routine in place and getting back to it when you're comfortable can really help you feel like yourself again. Hair tips postpartum. So many people do experience hair thinning postpartum. This happens usually around the 3-month mark. Now, there are things that you can do to help curb this a little bit, but something that's important to know is that even if you do nothing, it will get better on its own if it's truly from postpartum hair loss. This is a self-limiting process, so don't feel like you need to go and spend a ton of money. But I do really like the Nutrafol postpartum formulation. It was created alongside an OBGYN to be breastfeeding safe, so ask your provider if they're comfortable with that. You can use the red light helmets when you're postpartum. You can use gentle scalp massage when you're postpartum. So these are all things that we can employ into our hair routine. Aside from hair thinning as well, you might find that your hair becomes a little bit dry postpartum, which is normal. So just taking the time to use those deep conditioning masks that you already have, to use peptide treatments if you have them, just to give your hair a little bit of extra love. Alternatively, some people will find that their scalp becomes more oily. So you might have to switch up your shampoo to something that's made specifically for an oily scalp. Those shampoos usually look like the clear ones versus the ones that come out milky or creamy. The milky or creamy ones often kind of deposit lipids onto the scalp, which is great if you have a dry scalp, but can feel like too much if you have an oily scalp. Next question, vitamins or foods to reduce sun damage. Now, there aren't any foods that are going to directly stop the sun damage from happening, right? But in general, if you're eating a diet that's rich in antioxidants and omegas, that is going to support healthful skin. Of course, it's not going to negate if you're out there baking in the sun. So the first thing is sun avoidance and proper sun care. But having a diet that is rich in, like I said, antioxidants is going to help to fight free radicals. It's going to help to fight the loss of collagen in the skin. Vitamins, there actually is a really cool vitamin called polypodium leucotomus, which has been shown to basically aid your sunscreen in protecting your skin. So if you're someone who burns easily, or even if you have a history of skin cancers, non-melanoma skin cancers, there is a version of this with nicotinamide that has been shown to reduce the recurrence of these types of skin cancers. Next question, red light therapy helmet and face mask, please. So this question comes up a lot because I usually answer these questions on my Instagram while I'm doing my LED therapy. So I personally do use a face mask for LED. I use a neck and a chest mask for LED, and then I also have an LED helmet. I have a few different options at different price points. So for the helmet, my favorite option is the Eye Restore Elite because it combines both LED and laser therapy. It's the most effective, has really good evidence, has 3 different wavelengths of light, and then the lasers. But it is the most expensive of the devices. So there are other helmets that are just red light that don't have the laser, and they're a little bit more reasonable, but even those are on the pricier side. So don't feel like you have to use them, but there is good data for hair loss and hair thinning when it comes to red light therapy. On the face, I've used the Current Body for a long time, but I have had so many questions about the Omnilux, so I actually just ordered one to try it out. So I'm going to be switching to that one for a while to give it a good shot and see what I think so that I can give you guys my honest recommendations about that one. And I'll link all the ones I currently use below so that you guys can see. I have a discount code for some of them I don't, so I'll leave all of that below. Next question, Scalp serum and products for hard water. So if you're one of those people who can't really quite figure out what's going on with your hair, check to see if you have hard water, because when you're using all the right things, the hard water can really make a detrimental impact on your hair, and it might be the issue that you've been trying to figure out. So I do use a serum that helps remove calcium from the hair. It's a pre-shampoo treatment from Kerastase that I'll link below. And then the biggest game changer for me is a shower filter. So there's a ton on the market. The one I use is T3. I use the standalone shower head, but there's also one that has a removable spray nozzle. If you prefer to have a removable shower head, I'll link that below. I also have a code for that. And those two things combined have really helped a lot with my hard water buildup on my hair. Next question, is niacinamide better in a cleanser or moisturizer? I think that niacinamide is better as a leave-on ingredient. I don't think it is as helpful in a cleanser, but as I mentioned earlier, just make sure that you're not already using something with niacinamide in it, because it might already be in your serum, it might already be in your sunscreen. That's a very common ingredient to see in these products. It's also very commonly seen in moisturizers. So I recommend just picking one product in your routine to have niacinamide and sticking with that so you don't run the risk of overusing it and getting any sort of irritation. All right, let's end this episode on one of the most common questions I get, which is things to do to reduce necklines. So necklines are really the result of the way we live our lives now. We are always on our phones, we are always on our computers, so our necks are always kind of folded down. So it sounds silly, but the best thing that we can do is to reduce the amount of time that we're in that position. So pulling our phone up at eye level, having our computer stacked up on books up at eye level so that we're not looking down all the time is helpful. There are also, if you're someone who kind of starts to scrunch in your sleep, there are those silicone patches that you can put on your neck to keep you from making that motion and scrunching up the skin when you're sleeping. Then of course, using a daily sunscreen, using retinoids to help increase skin integrity. There are in-office procedures like microneedling. There's a lot of other injectables even that we can use in this area to help soften the appearance of these lines. So in general, there's not one thing that's going to make them go away. And frankly, they probably will never completely go away. But just incorporating all of these different angles will help reduce the appearance of them. So I hope that you guys found this Q&A helpful. I have a few hundred more questions to get through, so I'll try to do a couple more of these. And remember, every Sunday on my Instagram at Amy Korberling is where I collect the questions for these. So if you want your questions answered, you can submit your questions there. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it on your stories, to your friends, to your community, and make sure you tag me, because every week I pick a couple listeners to send a little box of goodies to, just to show my appreciation. I also do this for people who leave reviews on the show. So if you're inclined to leave a review, I do pick 1 or 2 of those a week to send a little thank you box to. So as always, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week, skin enthusiasts.